Hey, Bio2 students, Mr. Yance again. Hope everything's going well for you. I know we're in a tough time right now, but hopefully everybody's safe. So let's go over a little bit about classifications. I talked a little bit about reductionism and emergence and this big concept called biology. So we're going to try to break it down into a little smaller parts today. Uh, and the biggest problem with biology is it's so big. There's 1.8 million species we've named, and we're not even close to scratching the surface yet. We think there may be as many as 10 to 200 million different types of species on our planet. So we have just started classifying species, and we've been at it a long time. And I think this is a great picture. It's the picture from Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. And if you look at that picture closely, drawer after drawer after drawer of just what we call lepidopteras, which are butterflies and moths. Unbelievable amount of species. And that's just one group, and one family. So since we have so many different types of species, we have to kind of break this down into smaller groupings, just like we did with the biosphere and ecosystems and communities, populations. Even when you get down to organisms, you have to classify those down as well. So let's take a look at this classification system, and we call this uh, taxonomy, not to be confused with taxidermy. We're not stuffing animals here. Taxonomy is a branch of biology where we do classify species into a hierarchical type of order. And we're going to start with kingdoms and domains. They're the broadest, biggest groups, sort of like the biosphere with our other classification system. And then we start breaking it down little by little by little until we get into a precise individual organism. And I always like this saying. It's kind of a local type of thing my students came with up years ago to remember these things. The first letter, and you'll be surprised how many of you will say this to yourself on the test, but dumb knights play Chargers on Friday, get smoked. Little play on words there, but domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. And that's the classification group I like for you guys to memorize and know. And we will keep circling back to that all the time as we go through botany and zoology and ecology and different classifications groups. So when you look at that, and let's look at this picture here. Let's just take, for example, bears, and let's classify them down into let's say we're trying to classify a black bear. Okay, you start with the domain. Look how many species are in this domain. That's not even all of them. And then you get kingdom, still a huge group. Then phylum, we're getting a little smaller. And then class, a little smaller. And then order, family, even genus. There's black bears, there's polar bears, there's brown bears. And then eventually you get into the genus and species. So, I used to do an activity. I don't know if I did it with you guys when you're in Bio 1 or not. I've kind of done several different activities, and we got a little assignment online we'll be doing, classifying some imaginary organisms today, or it'll be on Google Classroom on this week. And that is when you look at these, I used to take a bunch of objects, I put them in a cup. I actually just cleaned out my junk drawer at home. And you'd have nails and staples and screws, and then there's different types of screws. There's different types of nails. And I had these non-living objects. They had to break into smaller groupings, and then they had to get down an individual one, and they had to name it. I don't know if I did that with you guys or not, but it's harder than it looks. So this is not just something we do for animals and plants. We do this for all kinds of things, and it helps to get down to, for example, I'm going to Menards today, and there's a certain screw I need in a certain size, a certain type of head, and a certain type of purpose. Is it a wood screw, metal screw? I'm looking for a wood screw. And I have to look through all these boxes and sort through all these different types, and before I finally get to the one that's functional. And that's basically what we do with animals and plants and in the living world, is we classify those things down. So when you look at the domain, so let's just start with the biggest group. It's the highest level. It is the most, inclusive group. There's a bunch of them, but we can basically break it down into bacteria, which are prokaryotes, archaea, which are prokaryotes, and then eukaryotes, which was a huge group that includes protists and plantia and fungi and animalia. Just a huge, huge grouping. And when we look at that, this is what we're kind of looking at. And you can see how hard this is to start breaking these things down. And that's why it's really important we understand that classification. We came up with it many, many years ago, and we just kind of modernized it and made it more precise because we can look at DNA and things like that today. So I just kind of want to throw that out there. Dumb Knights play Chargers on Friday, get smoked. Domain, kingdom, family, that type of thing, order, class, genus, species. And I just want you to kind of get that down, and we'll come back to that, and I'll have you do a little activity on that this week to kind of re-emphasize that. So the last thing I want to go over, it's kind of a short video today. We have short periods at school because of testing. So what is science? I think that's a good question. I'm not just talking about biology. What is science? Whether we're talking about chemistry or physics or biology or space, science is from a Latin word which means to know. And I really love this next part. And there's some nice little videos that I'll put online. You can watch. I'm not going to play them right now. It's Big Bang Theory and Monty Python, very funny little video clips. But science is that search for knowledge, that search for information. It never ends. And what separates science and all the other types of disciplines, how are we different than history or English or math or whatever, is that we have to use a process we call scientific method. I know you've been hammering on that over and over and over again, but that includes making observations, forming logical hypotheses, plural, and then you have to test them. What I have always liked about science is not just the pursuit of knowledge, which is always a big thing for all of us. And think how many times we Google stuff. I'm fixing something out in my shop, and I'm like, oh, how do I get this fixed? And what do? I look up YouTube, right? Watch a video, and that's kind of what's nice about science is we don't just look up information and think, oh, who was that actor in that movie? Okay, that's good. Sometimes we want to know that information, but with science, we have to test it. We have to back it up. When we make statements and we make theories and we say this is what we think is happening in nature, we have to back it up with a scientific experiment. And that's what's always drawn me to science. Not that there's not a place for the hypothetical, for the philosophy, that type of courses. I still like that tangible, get my hands on it, let me prove it part to science. And man, think how important science is when we come up against things like this pandemic, and coming up with a vaccine and getting past this so we can get back to normalcy. That's going to take science. Whether you like science or not, science is what drives discovery, and that's how we solve big world problems, especially health-related issues. So, that's what's nice about this course. We're right in the thick of things with science, and hopefully you'll enjoy what we go through, and it'll make sense as we go. All right. Okay, we'll stop there. Again, hope this makes sense. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, virtual students, and let me know if something doesn't make sense. And I will put all this online so you can watch the videos and all that stuff here shortly. So, hey, have a good week, and we will talk to you later. See you. Bye.